Dr. Charles Dennis, known to most as Charlie, is a cardiologist with the Virtual Cardiology Group in Voorhees, New Jersey. He is married to his wife Lisa and has 4 children, Caitlin, Tommy, Scott, and myself, Holly. I sat down with him on December 3, 2011 to reflect on his childhood and career in medicine. How was your relationship with your parents growing up?
I think you know that I had a difficult childhood. My mother was married 3 times, divorced my father when I was less than a year old, so I never knew him. Her second husband was not a nice person, and we didn't like him as children, and she turned out not to like him, divorced him. And she remarried when I was 14 or 15, and while I really liked her third husband, I never really felt like I had a father figure in my life. So my mother was very important, and I think a mother offers a lot to a child. But I think the difficulty is that if you don't have the balance of 2 parents in your life, it does create difficulties, and you have to seek the kind of guidance that the other parent would give you by looking outside the family. And I think that made it hard because it took me longer to understand myself and understand what I wanted in life. So again, I would hope that if you go on and get married and have children, that you find the right person for you and somebody that you can stay with for the rest of your life.
Do you have any regrets in your life?
I think that having lost my mother at a very early age, she died when she was 46 and I was about 4 days from graduating from college, was that growing up we were very close, and as I became a teenager it was pretty typical. We had our conflicts as a teenager, and then in college in the late 1960s, early 1970s, the Vietnam War was on, people were protesting that. My mother was a very conservative Republican. I was pretty liberal about things, and it created a divide for us. And we started to come back together about the middle of my junior year, and certainly through my senior year. We exchanged letters, which in those days there were no cell phones. Calling from college was very expensive. I didn't have the money to make long-distance calls, so it was funny. We communicated by letter a lot and exchanged letters, and that gave us an opportunity to know each other better. And while I can't change what happened to her, I certainly feel like it would have been nice to know her better as an adult, which I was becoming right around the time that she died. So I don't know that I could change it, but I regret not getting to know my mother better, understanding her better, understanding what her real background was, what her motivations was, and what we're kind of doing here, what her hopes and fears were, what her thoughts were, where she would hope that I would end up, and where the rest of my brothers and sisters would end up with all of our lives.
Do you think she'd be proud of you and everybody else, all your brothers and sisters?
I think that she would be proud of us. I think that she would have been bothered, like every parent is bothered by the bumps in the road their kids go through. It's funny because I see patients all the time who are telling me the difficulties and the problems that their children are having. And I just saw a patient this last week who was discussing the difficulties of their child, and this patient was 78 years old. And the son that she was worried about was in his mid-50s. And it reinforced me once again that your children will always be your children, and you'll always worry about them, you'll always want the best for them, and you'll always think that there's something you should be doing to help them and to make their lives better. I think at some point you have to realize that they're adults and they're going to make it or not make it on their own. But I think that that's just one of those life lessons.
Oh, the shark, babe, has such teeth, dear, and it shows them pearly white. Just a jackknife has old Maggie Heath, babe, and it keeps it out of sight. You know when that shark